Let's talk about a paradox that I perceive in the Republican Party in regards to comparing abortion to war. The singer-songwriter Jim Croce had a song that was released after his death, and in the chorus of the song he said, "You say you love the baby, then you crucify the man." And it was his coded way of saying, especially in the United States, people definitely care about saving the lives of unborn children, yet when it comes to war, it's as if that's not somehow the same thing. And I'm not a Republican, I'm a Libertarian, so I think it's interesting because I'm able to stand back from the tribalism of Democrat versus Republican. You're evil, you're ignorant, you're immoral, and then they say the same thing to each other. So being removed from that sense of tribalism, I'm able to be a little bit more maybe reasonable about the thing, see it from a different perspective. I definitely am opposed to abortion. Morally, absolutely, 100% opposed to it. However, what about war? And I think what happens with the Republican Party is they get caught up in the concept of patriotism. That if you don't support the war, whatever the war is going on that decade, that you're somehow less American. You don't care about our country. But again, removing myself from the Republican Party, I feel I have the mindset more of Metallica. They have a song, actually I'll pull it up right here. On their Black album, they have a song called Don't Tread on Me. And I feel they shed a little bit more of this neutral light on it. They have a line on there that says, "Shining with brightness, always on surveillance." So they're talking about the United States military having this bright light, always shining, always looking for someone who's going to try to possibly mess with us. We'll get you, basically, is the concept there. And there's another line on there. It says, "To secure peace is to prepare for war." So I feel that it's established that for the United States, our role is to police the world. And we know this. We know that we would not feel comfortable if any other country had military bases set up all across the world. We wouldn't feel good about that. But we're the ones doing it, in essence, securing the peace there. But here's the thing. There's still war going on. And there's always war going on. And we can look in hindsight at Vietnam and think, okay, yeah, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. But we're pretty much doing the same thing. Each decade, we find a new group of people to be the enemy that has some kind of ultimate identity conflict with our own. It makes it easy for them to be the enemy, and they're the enemy. And I keep pointing this out, no one seems to care. But when you look up who was on the planes on 9/11 that crashed into the buildings, you look where they came from. Those are not the countries that we're at war with. And I think that's very interesting, that this blanket was just thrown, oh, Muslim, Middle East, terrorist, freedom. Just mumble out a bunch of words and people go along with it. But the people who were in the planes were actually from countries that we're basically oil buddies with. But people don't talk about that because that sounds like a conspiracy, and there's no possible way a conspiracy could be the least bit real. But then we can, of course, just go back to JFK. Back in those days, it was crazy to think that he was assassinated by our own government. But in hindsight, okay. So that's what we're dealing with. So going back to abortion, talking about war, it is interesting that yes, again, I morally oppose abortion. The thought of taking the life of an unborn baby. I cannot process that. That's so difficult for me to understand. And while that is what I perceive morally wrong, what about war though? What about sending our men and women off to war over ultimately a political issue, over sending a message, and they're losing their lives over this, or they're coming back disfigured? And it's this thing of support our troops. What if you do support your troops? What if you're very grateful for them, but you don't support the fact that we're always at war? over something. Here's what it makes me think of too. Looney Tunes, back when I was a kid, there was this episode, and I guess at the time it was already decades old. Those Looney Tunes episodes were like made in the 1950s a lot of times, and we didn't realize it watching them in the 80s and 90s. These things are old. There was one with Speedy Gonzales. And the whole premise of the episode was that there was this big fat mouse who wanted to send a very important message to another village far away. So it was the job of this one mouse. He hands them the scroll, and he has to go to the other village, but then this cat would kill him. So the message wasn't delivered. So several of these mice were killed in the process of trying to deliver this message from the mayor of this one town to the next town. And then finally, Speedy Gonzales is elected to be the next attempted mouse to make this run. So as you can imagine, Speedy Gonzales being the fastest mouse in Mexico, he's able to get past the mouse and deliver the message. What did the message say? Happy birthday. The one mayor was saying happy birthday to the other mouse, and he sacrificed all those lives in the process of that. Of course, it also makes me think of the Metallica song, Disposable Heroes. Same concept, back to the front. So it's this concept of, I think the Republican Party gets caught up in this idea of patriotism, and, oh, there's always a war. We'll find something to have a war about, right? We're sacrificing lives for that. Those are human beings. They're losing their lives. If they're fathers, now they have children and a wife they've left behind. All in the name of defending our freedom? That's the concept. But I feel that the Republican Party, and this is one of the reasons I left the Republican Party a long time ago, is that if we're going to say, hey, abortion's wrong, we're killing babies, what about war? It'd be one thing if it's some sort of clearly justified war where people are attacking us, but this is more about us policing the rest of the world. That's what we're doing. And we're still looking back on 9/11 nearly 20 years ago. I've already pointed out something that people are not willing to talk about, that we're attacking the countries, but yet there weren't representatives on the plane hijacking from those places. We're not talking about that. So we're very loosely using this concept that we're defending our freedom and this is the right thing to do. But this is what we always do as a nation. We find a group of people who are different enough from us and we make them the enemy so we can have war with them. We clearly did this with Vietnam. We did it with Korea, except we won that one, so that definitely helped. And then Korea became a major convenient ally for us, so that all worked out. But Vietnam, it definitely helped. Different religion, different race, different language completely. And then in my childhood, it was Russia. Now, granted, they look like us, but they definitely did not talk like us, and they had a different, the communists, so that helped. But when it came time for the current status, this current war, the Middle East, different race, different religion, and when then there's some extremist terrorist associated with that, it's easier to make them the perceived villain in this situation, which in real life, I've never met a Muslim person that I didn't think was just a completely wonderful person. And the Muslim people I have met in my life escaped that. They came to the United States to escape all that. They do not associate, they don't have the mindset of the people that are against the United States. They actually came here as a haven. So what I perceive happens is people are presented a version of truth. Hey, war is something we have to do. Abortion, bad. But as a libertarian, I can say, you know what? I personally morally disapprove of abortion, and I morally disapprove of war, unless it's truly justified. I'm just not convinced that we're at that place. I perceive us as the police. We're police in the world, and we're setting up disposable heroes, as Metallica says in their song. Now, granted, I'm the crazy libertarian. No one's going to agree with me when I use all this logic and common sense. I just sound crazy. That's some irony right there. Your comments right here.